Welcome back. This is the 58th segment of Making Sense for 7 Minutes, a summer-long series, Monday through Friday, where we are surveying in bite-sized pieces our historical narrative as given to us in the Bible, and asking always that immeasurably relevant question: so what? You take the death of Jesus on the cross and the bodily resurrection of Jesus. These two go together. They are inseparable. Each one of them sheds light and gives meaning to the other. Yet, of the two, it is in fact the resurrection that bears witness and provides confirmation to the facts that Jesus was who he claimed to be and that he did what he said he was going to do. Now, those who would deny out of hand that Jesus rose from the dead would do that perhaps for a variety of reasons, but I think one reason often is a philosophical position that gives them a predisposition against the miraculous. But then there's also, for many, to be frank, just a lack of critical thinking on their part. The Christian faith is rooted in history. God entered into human history, entered into time and space. And his bodily resurrection took place in history, in time and space. So, for someone to think critically about the historical claim that Jesus rose from the dead, some critical historical questions need to be asked. And the one question around which all the other questions are attached is, if Jesus did not rise from the dead, what happened to the body? I mean, something happened to the body. It was the conviction that Jesus had, in fact, been raised from the dead that was the catalyst for this bunch of scared and cowering followers of his to turn into a band of men and women who actually changed the world. So, if Jesus was not raised from the dead, what happened to the body? Well, one consideration is that his disciples stole it. In fact, that is what the guards were ordered to tell, that when they were asleep, the disciples had come and stolen the body. Now, obviously, there are some problems with this. First of all, the very notion that a group of disciples would come in, sneak in the middle of the night, go past the guards, roll back the stone, and carry Jesus' body out without waking up at least one guard. And if they had pulled off such a preposterous effort, how would the guards know that it was the disciples that took the body if the guards were asleep when it all happened? Another consideration is that the women, who were the first to discover that the tomb was empty, had gone to the wrong tomb. Except that they went back to the disciples and told them of the empty tomb, and the disciples then ran to check it out for themselves. And there's no way that they would also go to the wrong tomb. Another consideration that surfaced about 200 years ago is what is known as the swoon theory, which maintains that Jesus, in fact, did not die on the cross. He swooned. But in the cool of the tomb, he revived. And despite having been beaten and whipped, despite having been hung on a cross for hours by nails in his hands and feet, this Jesus was able to roll the stone away, sneak past the guards, walk back into Jerusalem, and present himself not as a survivor, but as one who had been resurrected. Then there has been the consideration that everyone who claimed to have seen the resurrected Jesus, some 500 plus, they were all hallucinating. It's just big old mass hallucination. Then there's the idea that the disciples just made it all up in order to start a movement. However, that would mean that every one of them was able to keep a really strange secret. And every one of them practically died for what they knew would be a lie. Look, there are all sorts of holes in these options, but there's also a tremendous amount of evidence, historical evidence, that Jesus really did rise from the dead. But you have to look for it. Thanks, y'all.